Welcome to the Sketch Cover Comic Cast.
Ladies and gentlemen, and boys and girls, and fellow sketchers all around the world, we've returned, and so has Barry Allen. Guys, it has felt like it has been forever since we've been here in the podcasting booth together, and man, it is sweet to be back. It being SummerSlam this afternoon, tonight, I should be saying it's too sweet, but I'd be remiss without saying hello to my good friend here, Clay Pauly. How you doing, man?
How's it going, buddy? I'm doing well. I'm kind of reeling from all the different conventions we've done lately, but buddy, it was a blast. I'm excited that we're finally back on the podcast together.
Finally, the Sketchers have come back to Winston-Salem to smell what we're cooking.
That's right. That's right. And actually, you got to go to Raw recently. How was that?
Dude, that was awesome. Now, I haven't been following like the current product very much. I mean, there's been some podcasts that I've been listening to that kind of rank different things. And Smirk of the Beast podcast, and they've talked about like AJ Styles. They've talked about, Roman Reigns. So I know who they are, and I followed NXT a little bit, but seeing them up close and like getting to make my own decisions about who looks cool and who doesn't, it was great. And Greensboro, they never fail to disappoint. We had a really awesome crowd, really rowdy crowd, but it wasn't like anything bad. Like we would boo somebody and the people behind us would like cheer them, and we were still like awesome. We would like look back and give each other a thumbs up. It was great. Like we'd be like, let's go Corbin. And then they would go, Corbin sucks. And then we would like high five each other. It was awesome.
That's so cool.
We had a great time.
Well,
tell me about the conventions. I've been following some of the pictures.
Oh gosh. Yeah. Well, I'll follow in the same wrestling bead there. Like me and my daughter and her best friend, it was her belated Sweet 16, and Becca wanted to go to the Raleigh SuperCon. So we went finally, and it was awesome. Tons and tons of like movie stars and pro wrestlers and just comic artists galore, writers. Just some really big names of all the industries that you could think over there in pop culture. And it was super fun. Probably one of my favorites that I got to see while I was there was, it was Rey Mysterio. He was there, and dude, like I could not believe like in real life, like how small in stature he was.
Oh my god.
He was literally like one of the only like wrestlers or superstars or, all around guests that were present that I think he was doing everything for free. Like
really?
I think I didn't see any price tags on his table. Maybe he was selling prints or whatever there, to make cash. But as far as I could tell, and in comment section, if anybody was there and you got in his line and you said, hey, correct me by all means. But as far as I could tell, people were just in his line all day that he was there, and he was taking pictures with kids, signing stuff, putting on Rey Mysterio masks on kids and stuff. And it looked way awesome. That how interactive he was with the fans. And same deal with Mick Foley. Mick Foley, Mankind, Dude Love, or Cactus Jack, as you may know him, was there, and he was doing awesome stuff. He was there all the time, and his line was always packed, but he was super interactive with the fans. And there was other just awesome wrestlers and, crazy people from TV shows, like William Shatner was there. Dave Bautista was there, as doing the Drax thing. And again, they had some other like really intense like artists and writers that were there. And so anyway, it was a great time. We had a blast. And then after we went to Raleigh SuperCon, the very next weekend, I was actually running the booth for our friend and sponsor, Eric Niltowski Art. We actually ran a booth at the Big Lick convention in Roanoke, Virginia, which that was really cool for us to kind of step into that and sell some cool art and get a few connections there. So that was fun. So man, like conventions were awesome. The cosplays are always super fun to see, like some really creative stuff. Yeah, dude. Everyone is just so unique and so different. I love the different conventions. So hopefully we get to go to more.
Absolutely. I'm very much looking forward to going to my second one. Raleigh was one that I really wanted to go to. Just the dates didn't line up. I was kind of looking forward to meeting Mr. Johnny Lawrence, William Zabka, shouting some No Mercy, but fortunately, that did not happen. But yeah, and you got some really awesome pictures, which you should check out, guys. Go to our Facebook page. We have a Facebook group page. We have an Instagram. We've got a Twitter, Sketch Cover Comicast, and we have our own website, sketchcovercomicast.com. Kind of got a little follow-up on the wedding issues. Come on down, interact with us. We're kind of awesome. We're getting here on the ground floor. We're giving you some stuff. So
that's right. We're a little bit cool, but awesome, man. Well, before we fully transition into the story, let me give a quick shout out to our friend and sponsor, Eric Nienoltowski with EricNienoltowskiArt.com. Guys, if you are into Marvel, if you're into DC, if you're into Thundercats or Overwatch, any of those properties or even more, he has got some amazing prints on his website, and I want to encourage you to go check them out there. He's also got some fantastic deals on some t-shirts, some custom art. I think he's even got, like, just as a sample, I think he's got a Samurai Darth Maul shirt that he did, and it just looks insanely cool. So, guys, give him a shout out on EricNienoltowskiArt.com and pick up a few prints if you get a chance. But, James, buddy, it's now time to jump into the story, and if you don't mind, take us in, man.
All right, boys and girls, this is one of the best Flash stories of all time. And I think I can say that without any hyperbole coming in, but it's the return of Barry Allen. This is the 90s storyline, 1992. It is starting with issue number 74 all the way to 79, written by awesome Mark Waid with the art by Greg LaRocque. It's fantastic. Basic premise of this story: Wally West, he was Kid Flash, and just basic sidekick for the Flash, Barry Allen. And some of you guys listening right now, you might be like, "Who's Wally West? Isn't he that kid that debuted on the Flash a little bit ago?" Yes, he is, but no, he's not. This goes all the way back to the Silver Age. Barry Allen, the Flash. His origin story in Showcase, it was the dawn of the Silver Age. I mean, it's what made superheroes cool again. Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, they were still trucking along in DC, but they were basically the only heroes that survived the 1940s, the Golden Age, and everything else had been horror and Western. Barry Allen comes along, Flash, whole new resurgence, Silver Age. And he trucks it, takes it on all the way to the Crisis on Infinite Earths, where he dies, sacrifices himself to save the Earth. Wally West becomes the new Flash to honor his uncle's memory. He's his uncle. And takes up the costume. But the whole premise of the new Flash comics is that Wally constantly struggled to live up to the Flash legacy. He's like, am I good enough? And he was really struggling with that because, one, Barry was such a good guy. He died saving the universe, and all these heroes look up to him. And he's his uncle, he's just role model to him. And he's struggling with, am I a good enough person to fill those shoes? And he's not as fast as his uncle. This whole thing happened where I think he could only move at the speed of sound in the first part of this comic book. And he got a little faster, but he'd constantly been battling, am I as good as Barry? Can I be as fast as Barry? And then when he'd finally come into his own, at the end of Mike, let's see, it was Mike, no, not Mike Barron. It was Mesner Loebs, William Mesner Loebs, who is an awesome writer, and he has a GoFundMe page. He's got a lot of health problems. You should go check that out, GoFundMe, and donate to him. But I digress. After he had finished his run, Wally was kind of comfortable being the Flash. Wade steps in, gives us this great recap of his origin, and then he goes right into, oh, Wally, you thought you'd come into your own? Your uncle's back. You thought you'd come to terms with this. Well, now this man who you thought, you couldn't fill his shoes is going to be back. How's he going to feel? What's going on? And then the story goes from there, and it takes a really, really awesome turn. You guys got to check it out. During the whole thing, though, it kind of felt like, and I don't know if you saw this at all, but it felt like, now that I was a little more knowledgeable reading it this time, of all through Wally West run, a lot of diehard Flash fans were like, Wally's not the real Flash. Barry's the real Flash. Man, if Barry came back, he'd be kicking Daniel Savage's butt, or, he wouldn't act as selfish as Wally did, or he'd be disappointed in Wally. Well, then Mark Waid's like, well, let's see. Let's bring him back. You want Barry Allen back? He's back. Yeah, how you like that? And it was fun how that went down. And then there's like a crazy reveal about, I don't know. And there's a part 2 where Barry Allen starts off being all Barry Allen-like and saying like, you did a good job, Wally. But gradually he starts getting a little bit weird. I guess that's how you could call it. And then there's a crazy, crazy reveal. Should I go ahead and reveal it, or what do you think?
I don't see the problem in it, man. I'd say go for it.
Okay, so all through the storyline, and gosh, I'm so long-winded. I'm going to let Clay talk because you guys are like, man, he was gone last week. I don't want to talk to him. Why can't we have another awesome solo? So yeah, he's coming in, and like Barry Allen is all, yeah, I'm Barry Allen, and you get to see this really cool, I think it's a splash page of Barry Allen, Jay Garrick, who's like the Golden Age Flash, and Wally West, like fighting bad guys and like have the different costumes. It's great. But then this one thing happens where they're fighting some generic super team, the Combine, these bad guys, and they knock Wally West down and they think they've killed him. And he's like, we've killed the Flash. And you hear like Barry's like, you did what? And he goes all crazy. And it turns out he's not mad because they think he killed his nephew. He's like, I'm the Flash. He's never the Flash. And I'm the real guy. And then he like betrays Wally, like sets him up to get killed so he can be the only Flash. And there's this really heartbreaking scene, like where they've staked out like where the Combine is, and both the Flashes get caught in like, it's a force field, and they can only get out by like vibrating their molecules in like synchronization.
Yep.
And Barry gets out and he's like, you've got to help me. You've got to help me. And he's like, why should I help you? You're taking away my legacy. I'm the Flash, and you came in after I was dead and couldn't wait to be the new Flash. And he's like, no, Barry, you're my uncle. I did this for you, and I love you, and everything I do, it's for you, and I wanted to make you proud. And then like he looks like he's like, oh man, whatever's wrong with Barry when he came back from being resurrected, Wally's got to him, and his face looks all soft for a second. And then he like kind of sneers at him, and he's like, your mistake, and then like leaves. And it was like, holy crap. And like, when I was a kid, I was a Barry fan. I'm like, wait, what? What's going on? And then Wally does escape, and then he finds this like where Barry comes back from the dead. He's like rematerialized as like he was energy, and he comes back in this alleyway, and there's a book in the alleyway that's like been overlooked, kind of like Chekhov's gun. Wally goes there, he finds this book, and it's the biography of the Flash. And he finds out that this book was loaned to a guy named Eobard Thawne. And Flash fans from the TV show know that that's the Reverse Flash. So there's this really cool scene where like Barry goes all like completely crazy, and Wally's in hiding because he's afraid to face his uncle. And Jay Garrick, a new speedster, Max Mercury, who is not really a new speedster, he's like an old character, and Johnny Quick come out of retirement to like fight him, and like Barry cleans mops the floor with him. Yep. And then he's at the Flash Museum, and Wally shows up behind him, and he like throws him this ring, and he's like looking for something, and it's the Flash ring that has like the costume that comes out, and he hits a button, and this yellow costume comes out, and he's like, oh, does that look familiar? And he's like, yeah. And it's the Reverse Flash, and it's like Wally West versus the Reverse Flash, and then they like fight each other. It's so cool. So yeah, I'm gonna shut up now. What do you think?
Man, that was it. I don't even know how else to describe. Like, it really threw me. I had no idea that was Reverse Flash. I had zero idea that was even possible. Like, I was like, how is Eobard Thawne there? Like, yeah,
it's like Barry killed it, but like,
it was okay. So I guess I'll go ahead and say this. That was my only problem with this book, is that it dealt with time travel. And
oh my gosh, I was about to say, because time travel. Yes.
Yeah, that is like the biggest like ex machina thing in any comic book, but at the same time, it has the potential to kill any story for me as far as like a plot point. And oh my gosh, I'm glad that Mark Waid did it in a tasteful and somewhat understandable way. Like, it kind of made sense what he said about how it all worked out. And fans, I'm not even going to try to explain it. Just go back and read the issues yourself. But it's worth it. It really is good, and I thought did a pretty good job. But and James, maybe you can articulate it better than I can. I'm not that good at articulating time travel. It confuses the heck out of me. But so if you want to touch on it, by all means. But ultimately, I thought that that was the biggest weakness of the book, was the time travel aspect. But it also was one of the biggest strengths because we're able to get Reverse Flash into a Wally West story. So it was really cool to see that aspect. And I'm with you, man. The one of my favorite aspects of this entire trade was the fact that we got to see so many speedsters, and I didn't even know who Max Mercury was. I know who Johnny Quick was.
Dude, he's so cool.
Dude, he was. It was like, dude, this guy is amazing. I love this, and I really enjoyed. Jay Garrick is always just super fun to see. So he was just classic Flash, with the little, like offering plate on his head was like awesome, and that was great. And then again, just the idea of the beginning where you see Barry and Wally and Jay all together on the splash page was just gorgeous. It looked amazing, and the different costume schemes, like you tell, like Wally had like this metallic feel and shine to his costume, which always looked good in all the different panels that The Rock did, and Barry just looked so classic. I loved at the beginning of the book where Barry's kind of like, I don't want to say it like teasing, but he's kind of criticizing Wally a little bit about how he would do things, and at the same time, like Barry says something like to the effect of like, it's gonna take me a little bit to get used to those white eyes. I see you've changed the costume a bit, and Barry just, Wally's just like, oh yeah, but Barry just says, I think it's better if people trust you more if they actually can see your eyes.
Oh gosh, yeah.
He's just dropping like these little hints and criticisms of Wally, and you could tell that it's totally getting to Wally, but at the same time, just Wally is kind of standing out on his own, and so it was a cool dynamic again of just like you could tell it's like a father-son aspect, a teacher-student aspect, and it was really cool to see that. And again, all the speedsters. I know when you get later down in the book, after it's been somewhat revealed, but it's totally revealed that something's wrong with Barry. Things are definitely something's definitely up, and he's out there. He's like wrecking Central City and Keystone, and I really love when they kind of round all the speedsters together and they start trying to tell Wally, like, okay, listen, you're the only guy who's going to be able to do this, and they start kind of palling around him and trying to give him different aspects of advice on how to get faster and whatnot, and that was again just another thing of the book that I was just like, like Wally's kind of a twerp in one sense. Like he's kind of like he's so proud that he's not really wanting to hear them, but he's hearing them out of the sake of respect. And, but anyway, it was definitely cool to, again, just to see like them trying to collaborate as like these four Flashes to take on arguably the greatest Flash of all time. And anyway, that all comes to a big halting plot point when it's revealed that it's Eobard Thawne, because it's again like that was Barry's equal in a lot of ways.
Oh yeah,
but it was just it was super cool, man. I love the story. Those are some of the points that I definitely held in high respect. But yeah, I mean, dude, do you even want to try and explain what happened with the time travel and how this thing worked? Because again, in the story, it does a great job explaining how Eobard Thawne was killed by Barry, but at the same time, it was a big headache, I thought, trying to kind of figure it all out.
Well, here's the thing. If I go and then I explain it, I think Flashpoint brought Eobard Thawne back in a different way, so it's all a moot point. But because comics, like, okay, so in the post-crisis, but I believe, and I don't know, Mark Waid follows. Well, I follow Mark Waid on Twitter. I'm not quite. Yeah, it's cool, but dude's awesome. So if he listens to this and I explain it wrong, I'm gonna catch a beating, I'm sure, on Twitter. Like he's gonna 150 characters or less. Like just gonna mop the floor with me. But I believe. So Barry Allen kills Eobard Thawne after accidentally snapping his neck when he's trying to stop him from killing Fiona Webb. And there's this whole long series of the trial of the Flash. It's in a showcase edition. I just haven't checked it out yet. I don't know that I will, but that happened. And eventually he's found not guilty, and Iris is not really dead. Anyway, Thawne is dead. The way this works is it goes more into Thawne's origin, where he was like a Flash fanboy, like in the future, because he's from the future. And he collects all these Flash memorabilia, and he's basically like a stalker, but Barry Allen's dead. So, I mean, he's just a crazy obsessed fan. And he's collecting all this stuff. He even got like surgery, I think, to make himself as fast as the Flash, and like to alter his face, kind of like he has like this like mask or something like makes him look like Barry, which, you know, the TV show did a really cool nod to that when Harrison Wells was really the Reverse Flash, which I thought was super cool.
Yeah.
And kind of Barry's mentor. It was a neat little like, you know, storyline. But he finds in like a collector shop the cosmic treadmill, and wants to, which is the Flash's time travel treadmill, because comics, but man, it's so cool. I'm glad it was in there. I mean, you got to go with it. If you're buying into all this stuff, that is like so Silver Agey, but it's so stinking cool too. I mean, it's just great. And he goes back in time, but the date was set wrong because he wants to meet Barry. And he comes to present day, the present day of 1992, and he finds out that, I don't know, from newspapers or whatever, that Barry Allen and Eobard Thawne were mortal enemies, and his brain is already like, you know, messed up. And he's like, what? But no, how did this happen? And he kind of goes a little mad sometimes and kind of believes that he is Barry. And then, you know, graduate's like, I have to keep playing this up or else I'm fated to go and die. So like so he goes back in time, but he's Eobard before he dies. Because time travel, timey-wimey ball, Doctor Who fans. But like, that would be for me, and I kind of agree with you, like, I'm going to do like a Bane speech. Oh, you've just gotten into comics. I was molded by it. I grew up in it. I didn't question the cosmic treadmill till I was already a man, but by then it was already awesome. Yeah, you know, so, right. But like somebody like, you know, like Christina would probably read it. She'd be like, okay, what is this time travel stuff? Like that would be a barrier, I think, to new fans. You'd have to say, okay, now listen, let's go back to, but for who this was written for, you know, the fans who wanted Barry Allen back, it was fine, but maybe there's a little barrier. But gosh, that was cool. And I loved how I said that about like Barry making, fake Barry, faux Barry, making those comments like, well, people could see your eyes. It reminded me, when you said father and son, it reminded me like perfect, where if I come home, and I love my dad, I do, and I'm washing the car, and I couldn't run like my parents' house, my dad would be like, well, now you need to start here and do it. Yes, like, I can do this. I'm 37 years old. I know what I'm doing. Yeah. It's not. Those little beats were perfect. And when you talk about like the speedsters coming together to kind of like train Wally up, you know, to like fight Barry Allen. I love the part where he's trying to remember the secret formula for Johnny Quick, which when I ran cross country and when I still go and run, sometimes if I'm having a hard time, I'll say like 3x2, 9yz, 4a, but I don't know how to pronounce parentheses, so I can't open up. So that part was cool. And then when Max Mercury shows up and he's like, you're wondering what this old timer can teach you. He's like, well, actually, I'm trying to be nice. And he's like, how fast art? And then he's behind him really quick. Like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was one bad
So
dude,
that
man.
was... He's awesome. And I love when they like revealed him, where they're playing with like he's at the subway station and he's like, I'm not Max Mercury, I know what you're talking about. And they knock his tokens over and his super speed kicks in. It's like, yeah.
Oh gosh, yeah. And again, that's just a great like panel, because like the art was done really amazing. And we've talked about this before, where just the Flash is just one of those series that you really get such a great taste of how comics like can really like make scenes of action really gorgeous, with like the different, like, I don't know what you'd call it, like the after effect or the shadow or whatever of like running super fast, like the blur effect itself. Like, and I think you have what's the proper term for it? You said it earlier.
Oh, I called it the Carmine Infantino effect because he drew it, but I don't know if that's true or not.
Well, I want to go with that, but the bottom line is, like, again, you got so much of that, like all these amazing panels of like really well done animations of motion, of like that scene where he drops all the tokens. You see like this panel just just like bam 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 bam, like they're going everywhere. And the same thing with the Flash, again, just with all the different speedsters in this book. There's just so much motion in the book, and it's so cool to watch. And I said, like, this as an older story, it's from the early 90s. You know, you could argue that some of the 90s books were real like wordy and really lengthy. This definitely was not wordy and lengthy. This was just plain, simple, comic book, and you can always judge a really good comic book by if you didn't have any words, if you just had the panels that could still tell a good story. I think if you took out every word balloon, every little piece of dialogue, you'd clearly be able to understand the story in this book. It was really done. It was done really well, and it was super fun to read just because the art fits so well with the story. And again, just Flash is just one of those stories you're only going to get just that kind of action where it's constant motion, things are always moving, and it just LaRock did a great job. I want to go look at more Greg LaRock stuff because of issues like this. I will say some of the faces looked a little bit odd at times, and sometimes because there's again so much motion happening, I'm like, well, that guy's arm kind of looks broken, but at the same time, I'm like, I'll give it a pass because again, they're just it's classic comic book art where just everything is exaggerated. Someone gets punched and it looks like they're breaking in half because they're bending backwards so far, their heads are touching their feet, and it's just like, again, but that's just classic American superhero comics, and it just looked great. So anyway, fun read, fun art. Like, it was seriously
absolutely good. And I love like the speed tricks, like where they're fighting in the construction thing, and like Barry takes like a handful of gravel and like throws it at somebody. Like, that hit him like a shotgun blast. I'm like, well, yeah, probably. That's cool. And then like Max Mercury doing the acrobatics, and oh no, it's so cool. And it definitely has aged a lot better. I think you mentioned that too, than the Teen Titans that we read.
Yeah, we mentioned that before the show. Yep.
And that's what you get, Wolfman, for killing Barry. Boom. Yeah.
That's right. That's awesome.
No, Wolfman's awesome. I'm probably going to follow him on Twitter too and get a beat down for that.
That's right.
I don't know. One thing, and I think you mentioned this too, about when I was growing up, this one resonated with me about like, man, Barry's such a good mentor. I hope, like think of all the things I could achieve like Wally did, and, like find like a mentor and like have that. That was what I thought about growing up. But now looking back, when he's like Barry's legacy and where he finally, finds the will to like beat Reverse Flash, where he's like, they're right. The reason I'm not so fast is because I'm afraid of replacing Barry, but I'm more afraid of letting him do it. And he's like, bam. Yeah. And then like he takes over, and then like he's like, and I think that Dawn makes a point. He was like, I'm going to kill you because you're the protege, and everything that was in him is now in you. And once you're gone, there won't be a Flash. And I'm like, dude, and I think about like people, that I look up to, like my dad, like my grandpa and stuff. And I'm like, can I fill that legacy myself? And then I look like to Jimmy, and I'm like, would I be the type of person who would inspire him the way that Barry inspired, Wally? Would I be that good of a mentor? Or would he look back and be like, yeah, my dad's crap, like whatever. Or would it be like, like somebody who's like, once he's gone, like, what lessons do I teach my kid? And there was a really cool line that was like, that I read somewhere, that Dawn and Wally were kind of both Flash fanboys, and Wally got the powers, Dawn got the powers, and Wally's the one that got mentored by Barry. And I guess, Dawn could have been a good guy too, but he chose, to be bad. But right. Wally deep down is a good person, and he took those lessons to heart. And I'm like, am I teaching my son the right way to be a good person and take lessons or am I Eobard Thawning him? It was definitely a different perspective, and kudos to that. Like, looking back, it's not, oh yeah, this is a good story. No, it's a very good story. It's a great story. Makes you think.
Yeah. No, it was I agree, man. Like, there was a really, really good message behind it all. Like, and it's really practical. That's the thing that really got me more than anything, was that the underlying message of like this very real and practical fear of like expectations regarding like legacy and kind of reaching the bar that's been set prior to you coming onto the scene, applies to almost anyone in any area of expertise or any job in general. I mean, it doesn't matter what it is, it's for me myself, I look up very highly to like someone like Jeff Johns. Like I just enjoy just about everything he's written. I think it's amazing. I think he will go down as a fantastic writer and contributor especially for DC, actually for DC Comics. He hasn't done anything with Marvel, but I mean, he's been pivotal in so many awesome storylines for DC. So you could really argue that he has set the bar extremely high. So if I was ever put in a position, to write comics professionally, if I really just take ownership of the fact that he is just this amazing legend, or if I'm an artist, if he's Jack Kirby, whatever, if I live in this constant state of like, of fear and respect of like, wow, look at that mark. It's so far away. Look at how just great this guy was. Can I ever get to that point? It really, in the end, becomes a hindrance to your own creativity, to your own strengths, to your own personality. Like it, as a parent, it should never be like this idea of like, I never want I want my ceiling to be my kid's floor.
I love that phrase.
If that makes sense. Like I want to only take them higher. So again, like for Wally in this story, to bring it back to this comic, it's such an awesome moment where he really overcomes that fear that, while Barry was this amazing like hero who's like almost uncomparable, like there's just no one else like him. He kind of gets past this idea of trying to be Barry, and he just has to be Wally. And when he kind of gets that revelation that I'm going to do the best that I can, I'm going to be the best hero I need to be for this moment, and reach that mountain, or climb that mountain right now to accomplish the task. That's kind of what gets him over. Like you said earlier, Eobard Thawne was the task put before him, and he had to just step up to what the circumstances brought him in order to take Thawne to task. And it did. Now he's just as fast, if not faster, than Barry ever was, because it took him, to that next level, to surpass anything he thought that Barry could do. I guess you could. I don't know if that's entirely accurate thing to say, but ultimately it was just, I love that message of just having to just step it up higher, to do the best that you can do, not comparing yourself to someone else, but being yourself to the best of your ability. So again, kudos to Mark Waid. I thought it was a real practical message, really fun message. I let my kids read this story. I can't think of anything in the book that was really inappropriate or really super age sensitive. I thought it was pretty much just a great all around story. I was very curious though when Wally was tickling his girlfriend.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
I was like, oh no, he's gonna kill her. Like,
I guess that's their move. Yeah, I'm like, what?
How's that gonna work? But
every time I read that part too, I think about that, and I'm also like, man, I wonder how good those tacos are they were making. Because he was making some tacos.
Yeah, dude. Like some Fruit Ninja stuff, like throwing them up.
Yeah, before Fruit Ninja was cool.
Yeah, exactly. So
one note that I thought, you said that about Thawne being like the bar kind of thing. I think that was a genius of Mark Waid to make Wally fight Thawne, like, because he'd had his own villains, but this was kind of like, and gosh, it's because SummerSlam is coming up. This was like, like Hogan letting the Warrior beat him. It's the passing of the torch. It's like Wally's not just like, I'm the Flash. No, you have to fight a guy that, your uncle had trouble with, and like to prove that, yeah, I'm as good as Barry because I beat Barry's bad guy. It's like, how can John Kent proves that he's the new the new Superman, after Kal-El goes and does whatever, if he never had to fight Lex Luthor, or like, well, Robin, Slade's pretty cool, but the Joker, I mean, come on. So that was pretty cool that, he got put over. So that was cool.
That's cool. But dude, okay, I think we're on the same page, man. This is a great read. I think we both recommend it. And now it's time. It is time, my friend, to move on, to transition into character resurrection.
Dun, 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 dun! And it's coming. Says it sound is coming, or if it's not, it'll just be me or Clay making weird noises in their microphone. So
yeah, that's right. That's right. That's awesome. Bam. Okay. Well, okay, it was my turn this time to pick.
Boom!
For a character resurrection, and I'm trying to think if anybody guessed correctly on Facebook. It's not in front of me, but here's what I'm going to say. As far as I know, nobody picked. There was a ton of guesses. I think we heard some. I think Malachi Alt guessed Man-Thing, I think.
Oh, that was nice.
That was great.
Your lovely wife picked Swamp Thing, which allowed me to put the Swamp Thing. You are amazing. It's awesome. It's awesome. He is, man.
Yeah, that's right. I think actually, I think my daughter picked Godzilla. I think so. I mean, there was just a ton because again, the clue was definitely hinting at lizards. But at the same time, there was an Avengers and maybe a Great Lakes hint. And so anyway. The answer, and again, I don't think anyone guessed correctly, so no real shout outs this week, but the correct answer to this week's character resurrection of who we're doing is Dinah Soar from the Great Lakes Avengers. And guys, if you're not familiar who Dinah Soar is, again, it's Dinah, Dinah, and then last name Soar. I'm sorry, Soar, Soar, as in soaring through the air. Dinosaur.
Pun.
Yeah, major pun. If you're not familiar who this character is, she is a member, a founding member, as far as I am aware, with the Great Lakes Avengers. Her debut was West Coast Avengers, Volume 2, and number 46. But guys, if you've not ever seen her, she is definitely something to see, a sight to behold. Oh gosh, and what's even crazier is that the way Marvel Comics generally presented Dinah is she's pretty odd looking. I mean, she looks just, she has like she's very like a hot pink colored,
very 90s, yeah.
It is very 90s, very slender. In some panels we see her with like this, I don't even know what you call it. Like some panels have her as like this aerodynamic cone head, others have like this very like bulbous, dome on the back of her head. It's again some different interpretations of what she actually looks like, but some interesting facts as to who this character is and what she was able to do is basically her abilities were relatively, small. I mean, I'll read this off the wiki. Let's just make this easier. Okay, so her powers are basically this. She has a pterodactyl-like appearance in that she has flight. She has razor-tipped wings that could protrude from her back and attached to her arms. In flight, she had great maneuverability and can achieve very high speeds. Her feet were equipped to hold people, so she had those like grippy, like talon feet that she could carry people while she's flying and stuff. And then she's also got what has been called acoustokinesis. Her vocal range was hypersonic and inaudible to most individuals. Her voice could be used as an offensive weapon by varying the pitch and wavelength, and she could also disrupt others' sonic powers. Then also something called smoothing, which is kind of odd, but it had to do ultimately with her relationship with Mr. Immortal from the Great Lakes Avengers, in that every time Mr. Immortal was killed, during his resurrection phase, she would kind of come in, and her ability she would kind of talk to him, I guess, as he's resurrecting, and it would just calm him down. And it was so anyway, that's her and Mr. Immortal had a relationship. And anyway, so that was kind of like how they thought they were like soulmates, I guess, because of that relationship where she could calm him down, and he was like one of the only ones that could actually hear her. So that was interesting. And then she also has what's called advanced longevity, as in it is rumored that her species has an extremely long lifespan. Also, last little detail is that she has almost no backstory. There is relatively nothing that's really been done with her outside of the few issues that she was in for the Great Lakes Avengers, but she was unfortunately killed by, was it a Mortis? Not a Mortis. Maelstrom. She was killed by Maelstrom during a battle, and so she is technically deceased at this current time. But I think that's about it. Sums her up. Again, we'll post a picture of her on Facebook and maybe on the website.
Style. Yeah, it's great.
It's a very, very interesting look. And but again, I think that she's got a ton of potential. So I was really excited to that we had a chance to do Dinah for our character resurrection. And it also might have something to do with the fact that we interviewed Matt Frank and we were talking about monsters and dinosaurs left and right. And I was just like in a dino mood. But I digress.
Dinos are awesome.
Yes. So anything I'm missing that you can think of, James? I don't think
No, I think you covered her pretty well. I mean, I'm surprised I never heard of her, but she's cool looking, I think.
I think she's extremely interesting. So, okay, well then let's go on. It is now time for my shot at how to resurrect Dinah Soar. And man, I really hope I do this justice, because and I think me and you talked a little bit earlier, and I got really nervous that we were gonna go on the same route, but we might actually maybe touch on the same point. We'll see.
I think I took a detour to Crazy Town on mine, but we'll see. There's no P, so it's fine.
Okay, that's good. Hey, it's a win. That's a win.
Is it? Yeah,
we're on the right track. So that's Dino P. All right. So okay. So if I had the opportunity to resurrect Dinah Soar, I need to give a quick disclosure here that I'm really hoping I'm not going into the Clone Wars saga too much here.
Oh,
So listener beware.
trigger warning, Miles
right.
Warren.
But here's ultimately my deal here, and that's this. I think it'd be awesome if somewhere in the near future Marvel had this really cool storyline, and we'll call it the Reptilian War, and it's ultimately whether it can be in LA or New York. I know New York gets all the battles, but at the same time, give them a break. So maybe we'll go somewhere else like Louisiana, for heaven's sakes. But anyway, they had this gigantic war somewhere, and out comes like Lizard from the Spider-Man series, and then you got Stegron. Again, another kind of somewhat unknown character, but he's like this gigantic, again, like dinosaur, like humanoid, it looks similar to a Stegosaurus. So Stegron, the Lizard, are having this gigantic, like, reptilian war out in one of these major cities, and the Avengers and everyone else are trying to get involved, but there's just like, gigantic snakes and all these different, like, you can even bring like mythological, reptiles onto the scene. There's just reptiles everywhere wreaking havoc. And
Fin Fang Foom. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
That'd be nuts. That would be awesome actually if he pops in. And we could have, again, this doesn't matter who, but ultimately one of the heroes finally, is able to sit down and maybe get a hold of Stegron or get hold of the Lizard and pin them down and just kind of start to interrogate and say, what is going on? Why is there such chaos? Why are these like reptiles out? What are you doing? And ultimately he, the Lizard or Stegron confesses and says, listen, I'm here. Someone's crying. I can hear a cry. Someone's out there, and I've got to help them. I don't know who it is, but they're crying, and everyone's freaking out, trying to get to this voice. And the Lizard ultimately says, like, it's a female. There's a female one of us out there, and it becomes like this could kind of get a little bit weird, but at the same time, it's almost like that all the male lizards here, all these male reptiles, they hear the cry of like this female, and they're trying to find her, but at the same time, it's like a territorial battle of like,
nice.
You got to get out of here. This is my female. So then in comes Sauron. He comes flying into the battle, and again, there's a million things you could do with how it actually works out, but ultimately it becomes known that Sauron has. He is actually the creator of Dinah. And Dinah, who is, again, it's hinted in canon that she's actually potentially from the Savage Lands. Mm-hmm. So my theory is that Sauron actually created Dinah because he's a geneticist as his perfect mate. And but she is, or maybe he made a clone of her, and she escapes, and that's the one that we were familiar with that would join the Great Lakes Avengers and end up being killed. But let's just say this is the second, we'll call it perfect form of Dinah. So maybe there could be some artistic differentiations in how she looks. Maybe she could have like some different powers, but keep ultimately the same features. She has flight. She's very slender and aerodynamic and got talons and whatnot. But maybe she has like the ability to like blend in like a chameleon and whatnot. Maybe she has some little more ferocious wings, like wings that could literally, like, as she's flying, cut through stuff, you know what I'm saying? And so just like really cool features like that. And ultimately, so that's Sauron ends up creating her. She escapes. Someone ends up capturing her. It could be any villain you could think of. Maybe even Sauron is the villain himself that catches her, and now he's just trying to keep her hidden, but these other reptiles are kind of causing problems in the midst of it all. But ultimately, I think it'd be amazing if at the end of this story, she's kind of let loose in the midst of all these reptilian wars going on. And in the end, as she does not have like a vocal, like she doesn't have the ability to speak normally, maybe like the X-Men kind of jump in and they, Beast hooks her up with like this, audible speaker or whatever, that puts her on a throat or something like that so she can communicate. But to fast forward, I think it'd be awesome if we could then transition her from being like a part of something like a joke team like the Great Lakes Avengers and put her in a more serious position of like being this like new guardian of the Savage Lands, like where she just becomes like this seriously cool like protector that can blend in with her environment. She's so fast that you can't see her strike because she's just flying at such top-notch speeds. And I can myself personally envision like these awesome scenes of like Wolverine trying to track her down or something like that. And she's just so fast, and like her like these wings that are like almost like knives or like big blades. She flies by and just like wham, slams Wolverine, and like he's got this gigantic gash, going through his body. He's not dead, but at the same time, like you just
right.
Explain like how it would just demonstrate how like brutal of a character she can be. She could personally take down like these giant T-Rexes or raptors herself, and she's just like this silent, deadly predator. But again, could lead to cool interactions of like of Sheena, the She-Devil, and what's his name, Kazar, and stuff like that. And again, just super cool things. I think like that would be really fun. And also, she could just be one of those links to the X-Men, again, to bring the X-Men back into it. And I don't know, maybe even make her like somehow a member of the X-Men, but just she stays in the Savage Lands. I don't know. But that's just, again, that's probably my idea for character resurrection. I think it'd be fun. I think to embrace the full like Predator aspect of her being like this dinosaur-like figure, but at the same time, give her a sleek design, maybe give her a little bit more of a human features in her face, and not, have like the, like that weird bulbous thing on the back of her. I think keep like if you're going to keep the aerodynamic head, make sure it's just still the cone and not the the weird, balloon. That was just odd. So anyway, so that's my idea for how to resurrect her and just make her relevant. I think it'd be fun. I would enjoy writing her like that. Your thoughts?
I would read the heck out of Reptile Wars. That sounds awesome. Like, that would be so cool. It could be like, like maybe it would just be done in like an Avengers comic or Spider-Man or, whatever. You wouldn't have to like buy, like a miniseries Reptile Wars, but I could see it like going like when Thor had the casket of ancient winters and it got opened, and in like every Marvel comic it was like, it's June, why is it snowing, like it was like a subtle crossover. So like maybe it happens in the Avengers books, but Spider-Man's got to fight the Lizard, and it's like a Reptile Wars crossover or something. So I mean, it's happening, but it's, I don't know, it'd make the Marvel universe seem kind of connected.
That's
and
cool.
I love the idea of the Savage Land, and like you brought in Sauron too. I was thinking of having them just like, be partners in crime or something, but that was so cool with the clone. And then like she's one of the guardians of the Savage Land. You could tell some stories in there and have her there. That's perfect. And then she could fight cool. Sauron because he, likes to hang out there on occasion. So
yes, she's like almost like Beauty and the Beast. She wants nothing to do with him.
Yes, it's like he's an ex-boyfriend. Yeah, and they like fight, and he's like, "You vile, whatever," and like I'm everything that you could have been if you weren't so selfish, kind of.
Yeah, so, exactly. That's awesome, man. That's cool. I like your idea about the subtle crossover among them.
Oh, that'd be so cool. That's and when the lizards come in, yes.
That's cool, buddy. Well, what is your contribution today?
So I kind of like spitballed this back and forth with my better half. You can listen to her in the wedding episode. But we were thinking like there's so many things that I was thinking with her. And one, it's like, well, I want to, because she's dead. So I was like, well, how do you bring her back? And I know like Great Lake Avenger is kind of kind of a funny comic for a while. And I'm like, well, but she seems like she's got a little gravitas to her. What do I do? And then part of me was like, okay, Savage Land, I get that. What if, and this is not one I went with, but it's just, I want you to see that I thought about it instead of going with this goofy thing, but I did have other ideas. I wasn't like, oh, just goof it up. But I thought, what if we could go back and if Marvel could ever get the rights again to Conan, and what if she basically is that old and that like she could have adventures with Conan because she's like alive, and like maybe there's like a crossover with like they did in Uncanny X-Men where the Kulin Goth came back and he like turned all of Manhattan into like the Hyborian age. Have some kind of like MacGuffin like that happen. And then they have to be like, wait, where did this artifact come from? What's the secret behind this? And then they have to maybe talk to Mr. Immortal, who was like, with Dinah Soar, and remember that she really is this old, and here's what the artifact is. Somehow she was able to communicate with him what had happened when she teamed up with Conan and do like a sword sorcery kind of thing. But that's not what I went with.
I still love it. I still really love like the throwback to Conan.
Awesome. I missed that. Like I like the whole like, okay, Conan meets Wolverine or Conan comes to our time, just things like that. But what I went with was Dinah Soar's dead. And maybe at some point during one of her adventures, she saves this girl. like this young outcast type girl. And the girl's like, man, that superhero was kind of cool. I want to be a superhero. Or maybe she didn't save this little girl, but the girl was inspired by heroics and she wanted to be her own hero. Now, here's where it could go. It'd be like one or two ways. If Dinah Soar is like somebody who saved her family's rich and she has access. She's kind of like a technology protege.
Yeah.
And she makes like a superhero armor that looks like Dinah Soar because she's inspired, either inspired by her. So like everything Dinah Soar can do, these things can do. It's like a sonic blast and like she can fly.
Yeah.
And I want to go with inspired by her, but one of my thoughts was she wants to be a superhero, but all the other names are copyrighted and taken. And this one is not in copyright because she's dead. Sort of like how we, like maybe even the same guy who, if we want to do like a multi-part storyline with this stuff, who, you know, like with the Trapster and like that whole, you know, he said somebody's designing all of these different items for supervillains and like they can use them and like, you know, like the Trapster's gun.
Mm-hmm.
And this, so maybe that person says, yeah, nobody's using the dinosaur name. Sure. We'll see. Like the Tinkerer is back in town kind of thing.
Yeah.
So how about that? But I like the idea of her being inspired by her and building a robot suit and fighting crime and stuff. And maybe, you know, trying to do some good, but because she used to be with Mr. Immortal, he's upset. Like, this is my, you know, person I was in love with. We had this relationship and you're taking her name. Well, you can't do that. And like, he goes out, you know, like the newspapers and it's like, this person sucks and this isn't cool. And, you know, I'm triggered and, you know, like really like, how dare you, like not so much cultural appropriation, but something kind of like that, you know, like, sure. And I want him to like, maybe it gets like and she's trying to do the right thing, but maybe she's like a kid. She's like, okay, I didn't realize this could hurt somebody's feelings, but I can't stop. This is who I am. I want to be a hero. I've already got this. And maybe there's like a groundswell movement, you know, on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram or Snapchat or, you know, wherever the youngins do their thing. And it turns out like there's protein, like she's a terrible person and maybe she gets doxxed or something by somebody like on whatever. And then since they find out who she really is, Mr. Immortal sues her. And it's such a high profile deal that Jennifer Walters either takes the case because she's She-Hulk, and then her defense attorney is Daredevil. And there's like a little thing. And then you go into like a storyline. So it's partially comic, partially not. And then it probably gets resolved in like the Mighty Marvel method of like something happens at the courtroom. They all have to fight a bad guy. She realizes, look, you know, I didn't mean to do this. The guy's like, I'm sorry. I was hurting too. Okay, fine. And maybe they work together and, you know, it's like a little offbeat, quirky story. Or maybe Howard the Duck comes in. It's like a private investigator. He's got his own comic too, you know. So something like that, like kind of quirky, kind of like in the vein of Squirrel Girl, but like also kind of fun, kind of honors the character. So that's where I went.
I like, you know, I think that would fit probably perfectly in an actual Great Lakes Avengers book. I think it makes total sense for them to go through those shenanigans of like
Civil War.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you know, that is their Civil War for Great Lakes Avengers. You know,
and how she's doxxed is like, well, I need to dig up some stuff. We got this on Twitter stuff. Who's the cheapest we can afford with the money we have? There's this duck. Let's get him to be the private investigator. Okay. And then he finds it, and then She-Hulk does work in the same building as him, and he's done stuff. He's like, okay, well, you can take her. I can refer you to them for a little extra money. And then Daredevil's like, I don't know. Foggy gets in his ear. And it's like, she's had her identity revealed. Don't you know how that feels? And he's like, I don't know, Foggy.
Yeah. Oh, man. No, that's awesome. You know, I honestly, I would love to see like the mech dino suit that she would come up with.
I thought that was kind of fun. Like, it's just like, yeah, to make it. And another thing that we said, and it didn't work because there's this DC Superhero Girls book that we got for our niece, and we got one for Jimmy too. And we're reading it, and they go back in time to dinosaur times. And like, she's like, so it's something like that, you know, maybe Dinosaur hitches a ride and comes back to the present, and they have to teach her, you know, how to blend in at the school and stuff. And I'm like, gosh, that would be so cool. But that's DC, and this is Marvel.
Yeah, you're gonna get sued by the Great Lakes Avenger.
I am. They're gonna go and get Howard. I'll get Howard, maybe. Or
how dare you use DC?
That's you said them. What? The distinguished competition.
Yeah, that's awesome.
All
that's cool,
accent.
man. I think that'd be great. I think I really enjoy that. That'd be a fun read, I think.
Marvel, let's make it happen. Get that Reptile Wars, get some courtroom shenanigans. Just give us a call. We're on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and we have our own website. So plenty of places you can contact us. I mean, just if Mark Waid doesn't, beat me down. So.
That's awesome. Yeah, we'll have to reach out and see if he's open for an interview about, whatever he's doing.
Just being awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. Golly, I'm not sure there's been he's done just about every character you can think of, man.
He's done Daredevil. We could pitch this idea to him and he'd be like, no. So.
Yeah, that's right. Holy smokes. That'd be awesome. Well, dude, we're about at that time limit, but any other closing thoughts, whether it's about the story or about character resurrection?
Gosh, I think it's great to be back. I have totally missed doing this, so I'm glad we are back on a cool schedule. Every 2 weeks, guys. I don't know, sketch cover comic cast. It inspires me. It's great, man. I love podcasting with you. So,
amen, dude. Yeah. I'm really glad we're back on it, man. It was crazy. If the fans don't realize, again, we try and pre-record shows. And there was just a quick season that's recently gone by where it was just like we were busy like for 3 weeks straight. So anyway, like we pre-recorded ahead of time, and then I obviously did the solo interview with Matt Frank, and so we're glad that we're back together, and the dynamic duo is back on TV, back on the air.
Cap and Bucky. Yeah,
that's right, Barry and Wally. That's cool.
Captain Underpants and George and Harold.
Oh no, yeah, that's right. Oh man, well, awesome. Well, guys, thanks so much for joining us today. Don't forget to go check out our friend and sponsor Eric Inotowski with Eric Inotowski Art. He's got, again, some phenomenal prints of Batman, Superman, Spider-Man. If you can think of it, he's probably drawn it. Overwatch as well. So guys, show him some love on both his Facebook page and on his website, ericdinotowskiart.com. And don't forget to show us some love. Like us on our Facebook, share wherever, on whatever platform you like best. We're on iTunes, Stitcher, Facebook, Twitter, and so on and so forth. I think Instagram as well, and a few others. But go to the website, show us some love there, and we're hoping to post some more articles soon. But guys, again, thanks so much for joining us. We love you all, and we will catch you guys in the next one.
Take care.